Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Customer Driven Leader podcast, where we explore the critical impact that leaders have in creating, winning, and sustaining cultures that positively impact customer experiences. I'm your host, Dr. James Killian. Thanks for being with us, and thank you to the XM Global Collaborative for sponsoring this event. I'm super excited to have my next guest on. I'm welcoming my good friend and colleague, Tony Loyd. Tony is a master of just about everything you can imagine. He is an author. He is a keynote speaker. He's an executive coach who helps business leaders build in this crazy time. And he's a former Fortune 500 executive with brands you may have heard of, like John Deere, Diversey, Medtronic, and Buffalo Wild Wings. And I've known him for a pretty long time, and he's a pretty great guy. And I'm happy to say that I'm actually getting the privilege of collaborating a bit with Tony on his next project. Over his experiences over his long career, he's noticed that most leaders out there aren't actually failing. It's just that they're exhausted. And so he's now developed what he calls an endurance leadership framework. And this framework teaches leaders to regulate emotion, clarify purpose, adapt to change, connect with others, and maintain momentum. And we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes in a lot more detail. But first of all, Tony, great to see you. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Now we have a deal here. I'm not going to tell the stories I know about you if you won't tell the stories you know about me, right? That we have a deal here.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I can move forward without express permission from the Secretary of the United States of America. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Glad
Tony,
you.
we are going to get into the endurance leadership framework here in
Yeah.
a bit because I'm humbled that I get the opportunity to work with you a bit on this, and so I'm really excited to start to get the message out about what this is and what the advantages of the framework are. But as you know, I have certain bookends on the front and back. So I start and finish every show the same way. And so I'll start the same way I ask every guest this question. A leader, team, or company is customer driven when what? Can you please finish that sentence?
Yeah. I'll tell a story. Is that okay?
Please, indeed.
Yeah. So I was in a meeting at John Deere, and there was another business leader there, a guy named Tony Worthington, and greatly admire Tony Worthington. If he's out there listening, shout out to Tony. He's just a fantastic person, a great leader, very smart, taught me a lot of things. But we were both in a meeting one time, and somebody would go, "Well, it's like Tony said." I mean Tony Worthington, and then somebody goes, "It's like Tony said." Oh, I meant Tony Loyd, right? So it got kind of confusing. And finally, Tony Worthington kind of sitting back in his chair, and he goes, "Well, he's just the smart Tony." And I go, "Well, I don't know that I'd be referring to myself that way." He goes, "Well, here's the thing: you can be as smart as you want, but if you aren't serving the customer, you're not spit." It's like, whew, okay, that was kind of a backhanded compliment in a way, right? But that's how focused he was on serving the customer, right? Every thought he had, every question he asked, every meeting he was in, it was not what's good for me, not what's good for my career, not it's what's good for the customer because they're the ones writing the check for us, right? Let me give you though kind of a negative example, and I think this is interesting. Um, there was a company who really thought they were customer focused,
Hmm.
and what was happening was the sales reps were going out and they were meeting with customers, and customers would go, like this was a company you and I both have worked with, and the customer would go, I like your toilet bowl cleaner, but I kind of wish it came in an orange, right? In an orange scent. And so the um, the salespeople would go back and talk to the R&D people who would talk to the people in the lab, and then next thing you know, we had an orange scented toilet bowl cleaner because one customer mentioned it. And then somebody else goes, well, I kind of like that orange scented, but I wish it removed lime better from the toilets. We have a lot of lime deposit. So now you've got the orange toilet bowl cleaner with lime prevention, right? And next thing you know, we've got a warehouse full of SKUs that we can't move because one customer or two customers had asked for this thing.
Hmm.
And so there's a case where a company and the employees, they were really trying to be customer focused, but they weren't being process driven, right? So they were customer focused but not process driven. That doesn't work.
Hmm.
And so just because you're totally focused on the customer doesn't mean you're serving the customer. And so I know that you're all about customer service. You're all about, keeping the customer at the center. But if you're not doing good things for your company at the same time, your company's not going to be around to serve those customers. So part of being customer focused is also understanding what's the impact on the total operating system that we live in so that we can continue to exceed the expectations of our customers. So that, those are sort of a positive and a negative example of companies that were really trying hard to focus on the customer.
Yeah, I love that. And that actually knocks out the second question, which was, can you give me a good example of a bad example or a story
Yeah.
that's kind of shaped the way that you think, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important what you're saying here because, I thought it's maybe a little bit cliche, but I thought, Howard Schultz's approach of having the two empty chairs at the table, and if it's not good for the customer and good for the partner, which is what they call employees at Starbucks, then it needed to be revisited.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
again, maybe a little bit hyperbole there, but I do think that it gets at a central concept, which is you cannot create great customer experiences if you are also not creating great opportunities for employee experiences. And I know that's something that, as a learning officer, as a coach, as somebody who's, been, in charge of developing all these people with all these great brands, I'm sure you've had your fair share of understanding the connectivity between, the leader creates the culture that allows employees to thrive, and that then creates the opportunities for them to impact customers.
I think you just gave the entire endurance leadership pitch right there. That was
Well, I mean, let's actually get into that, right? I mean,
okay.
so
Yeah.
like, and by the way, everybody, I totally downplayed Tony's bio. I mean, he's just been like, look this guy up. He's done it all. I mean, yeah, TEDx. I mean, you formed Culture Shift Advisors along the way, really integrating a lot of the key learnings that you've had over your really exceptional career. And the argument being, as you and I talked in the beginning, basically, leaders they're exhausted today, and we all feel it: the stress and pressure, the
Mm.
short-term results
Yeah.
push, and I think when we first started talking, you had said something to the effect of, well, it used to be, leaders were always under pressure, and then they'd end up with some trial and they get knocked down and then they get back up, dust themselves off, catch their breath, and then get back to work. And now, before they can even get back up, they're kicked in the kneecap and hit on the back of the head and punched in the gut, all at the same time. And yeah, it's just impossible to get a toehold. So you've been arguing that resilience isn't really enough, that leaders need endurance. And
Right.
so maybe endurance toward what?
Yeah.
Say more about that.
That's a good question. So, the first thing I'll say is the reason resilience isn't enough is this, that resilience is about bouncing back, right? So you're coming along, you get a blow, it sets you back a second, and then, for a lot of people, there's like this post-traumatic growth, right? If we can incorporate in all the lessons learned and what and sort of keep an open, positive outlook during a big trial, then we can actually have not just post-traumatic distress, but we can have post-traumatic growth. And there is no shortage of trauma right now. I'm telling you, James, you know that I've been having a cup of coffee with 100 different business leaders,
That's
just
right.
sort of, trial balloon floating this idea about endurance. And I've been asking people, tell me what's happening right now. And, we've got leaders who will say, well, rapid change is slowing down our execution and, like all the things that you would say in a shareholder meeting. And so it's coached very well and it sounds like it's packaged. But when I probe behind that kind of stuff a little bit, I go, okay, what's it sound like in the hallway? One leader said, if you're standing in my hallway, you're going to hear, hold on a sec, wait a minute, we got to rethink that. Let me circle back with you. The thing I told you on Monday, it's no longer right. We now on Wednesday, we now have to readjust and right.
Yeah.
And one business leader said to me, she goes, I don't even know what's true today. And I'm like, well, can you say more about that? And she's like, well,
Hmm.
are the tariffs on? Are the tariffs off? Do I need to move my factory out of China? If I move it into Vietnam, is that going to, are they also going to get big? I don't even know what's true today. Like there's so much chaos, so much coming at us.
Yeah. Side note on that, Tony, I'm really glad that World War III didn't happen last night and we were able to actually do this podcast today.
Well,
Thanks.
yeah, I mean, it's the little things in life. Always look on the bright side of life, right,
There
James?
you go.
So, I mean, what we're seeing is economic disruption. I don't know when was the last time you filled up your car with gas, or maybe you're all electric, right? So, but
Yesterday I filled it up and it was outrageous.
yeah. And I don't know when the last time was that you looked at your investments, but like, it's going the other way, right? So the price of gas is going this way and investments are going the other way, right? And so businesses, our suppliers are calling us up. I had one person say, I'm sorry, this answer is a little long, but
No, we got all the
just
time.
trying to illustrate here a little bit. So one person said we had to have a price increase because our costs had gone up. And so we, went out and started sort of pushing that through. And so our supplier has increased their price, and you understand you have other suppliers too. So, gosh, we're really sorry, but we're gonna have to ask for more. And that's a hard conversation to have. And they get all the way to the end of that, and like they're almost with their last sort of like their B level, C level customers, and a different supplier for a different reason jacked up their price and said, we can't honor that price anymore. And now they've got to circle back and do that again.
Yeah.
And so, it's like knock back, knock back, knock back, knock back, knock back. There is no time for us to have resilience when the challenges are constant.
Yeah.
So what you now have to do is you have to endure. That's the
Yes.
thing that Jen and I, and you've been working with us. That's the thing that we came up with. It's like you have to learn how to be unshakable in a world that feels unstable. And that's a skill. That's something you can learn. That's something you can reinforce. But the root of this word endure is really about tolerance. It's about tolerating. How do you tolerate, um, you know, AI and technology disruptions? How do you tolerate, um, the talent pipeline leaking out? How do you tolerate all that? You have to find a way to build some internal endurance and build some structural endurance in order to be able to endure those kinds of disruptions.
Yeah. And this concept came out of, to some extent, your experience as an endurance athlete. Can you talk more about that? Because I'm a big fan of integrating, lessons from sportiness into business and vice versa.
Right. Yeah. So I'm a pretty good runner. I have been three times invited to the age group world championship races. The next one is going to be in Cape Town on May 24th.
Ooh.
So I've been training for marathons for a long time. I've been running marathons. I've done a few ultra marathons. Um, and so there are so many parallels between being an endurance athlete and being a business leader. There's the concept of recovery time that, if you're sprinting from sprint to sprint and you're always training hard, something's going to break.
Yeah.
And so just like your body, your ankle is going to start saying, hey, down here, pay attention a little bit. somebody in your organization is going to start showing pain. They're going to start showing the fatigue. And that fatigue is going to show up in different ways, and we can talk about that. But, if you don't find that rhythm of rest and recovery, that's one of the examples that we have within the framework. If you don't find that rhythm of rest and recovery, then you're never going to last. You can have a heck of a quarter, but I mean, you and I have both talked about this before, that the goal is sustainable, profitable growth.
Yes.
Sustainable, profitable growth. If you're growing and profitable, but it's not sustainable, that doesn't work. If you're sustainable and profitable, but you're not growing, nobody's going to want that
Yes.
because they
Yes.
want their investments to grow, et cetera, et cetera. So sustainable, profitable growth. You have to be able to balance all three of those. And so, yeah, part of that, it's an inside job first, just like being a marathoner, just by like being, I mean, you're an athlete, you're a triathlete, you're all those things. And so you know what that's like, that the race starts within.
Yeah. Yeah, it does, and I think about like we as athletes we talk about like zones, right? Like zone one, two, zone three, zone four, zone
Yeah.
five. Zone five is basically you're sprinting for your life because a lion is running after you.
Right.
Zone one
Yeah.
is you're warming up, right?
Yeah.
And you can't show up on a race day and expect to top out your zones if you haven't been creating the daily habits of showing up routinely, consistently, and performing at a level that conditions your body to be able to handle the more extreme scenario of actually race pace is
Yeah.
what we refer to.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
I I see that translate into business a lot. You see all the burnout. You see
Mhm.
people who are, a tale as old as time, right? Oh, that person's a really great individual contributor. They have to be made into the manager, and they know nothing about managing, and they haven't
Yeah.
been prepared, and they haven't been coached, and they haven't,
Yeah.
been mentored, and they're just not ready for it. And so they go full bore, burning the candles at both ends, and then they're toast in about
Mhm.
90 days, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, because you had it on your bio too, because I do think it really says something about you, Tony. You've recently gone through some health scares, and that's really reframed how you're approaching, I think, even the endurance leadership framework. Are you
Right.
willing to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. As I'm having this conversation with you, I'm sitting in my apartment, and if I am just through the wall right behind me, I was standing there on April 25th, April 29th, 2025. And the reason the memory is so clear is because I was moving into this apartment. And the reason I was moving into an apartment was because I was going through a divorce. And so, for anyone who's been there, it was the worst day of my life.
Mm,
I felt hollow. That feeling like your chest is hollow, like there's nothing in there.
yeah.
I was haunted. I was horrified, right? So all those things were happening at the same time. Oh, there's three H's. There you go. So I'm there feeling that, and it's like the worst day of my life. And then I get a ding on my phone. So my phone goes off, and I walk over and pick it up, and well, actually reach in my back pocket and I take it out. And it says, check my chart. Well, my chart is the portal that my doctor sends messages through. And so I'm like, well, what now? So I open it up, and the first words I see are pulmonary malignancy. I had lung cancer, and it was found accidentally through a scan for something different, and they found this pulmonary malignancy. So, you know, I wouldn't say this question came fully formed in my mind in this moment, but it was definitely there and it was starting to form. And the question is, how do you endure when the bottom drops out?
Hmm.
And that really, honestly, James, you mentioned all the things I did. I was Fortune 500 executive. I had a podcast called Social Entrepreneur. I sold a best-selling book, all that kind of stuff. But I was honestly, at that moment, I was on what I would call fade to black. Like
Mm.
I'm backing out of all my obligations. I'm sort of stepping back. I'm trying to, like let's just do less. I'm old and I've got enough money and I don't need to keep doing all this stuff. Let's just stop. You know. And it sort of it lit a fire in me. But a better analogy, I told this story to somebody else and she said, you know how we used to get ketchup bottles and they were made of glass. And so when you were trying to get that last little bit of the ketchup, or if you're in the UK, maybe your brown sauce or something, right? You're trying to get the last of that ketchup out. What did you do? Well, you hit the
Yep.
bottom of the ketchup bottle, and then the last little bit came out. Well, the universe gave me a big spank. And, and so like this is what has come out for me. This concept about, my friends are still, many of them are still in Fortune 500 companies. A lot of them are struggling with this constant churn of chaotic change. And so, how do you endure in the middle of this constant churn of chaotic change? And so that became sort of a theme for me. Now, last September, I had 25% of my lungs removed. I am currently in training for the age group world championship race in Cape Town. So I'm on this sort of cancer to Cape Town arc right now. And so this isn't theoretical to me. Like I am living endurance. That is the thing that I am
Indeed.
building in every cell of my body. And so how do you keep yourself calm? How do you clarify your values? How do you be change enabled? How do you shift when things shift? How do you connect with your community? And then how do you build that rhythm of rest and recovery into your life? Those became the framework that we're now sharing.
Yeah. Thanks for that addition. And I'm really glad that, by the way, that you told the story about how you received your diagnosis, because even though we talk about being customer driven or customer centric, in my vernacular here, patient centricity
Yeah,
also falls, it's synonymous, right? And I think, that's a really great example of like the worst possible patient experience that you can ever imagine, right? I mean, talk about no bedside manner at all. I mean, that's horrific, right?
yeah. I got cancer by text, dude. Come on.
Cancer by text, unreal. So in thinking about like kind of how the work that I do with customer driven leadership intersects a bit with endurance leadership. So under my research, we showed that under stress, and this is something that Bob Hogan of Hogan Assessment Systems was really big on, was the potential for people to derail when under
Right.
stress. So,
Yeah.
my research shows that leaders who may be operating at a desirable level when it comes to customer focus and employee focus, when under stress or duress in particular, they will
Mm.
regress
Right.
backwards into
Yeah.
undesirable territory or customer
Right.
derailing territory. So,
Right. Yeah.
where would endurance help leaders with dealing with that? And say more about that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just admire your model for a second, right? Can we do that? Can we just go,
Thanks.
you
I'll
know,
let you.
I get it. I really get it. And what I find is that there are many thought leaders today who are all sort of focused on the same thing, but they're approaching it at different angles. So
Hmm.
you're approaching it from the customer experience and the almost customer obsession. Like, how do we really make that customer experience something desirable? And if you want more stories of harrowing customer experience, trust me, I have several. But I also think about that internal experience in an organization. And you've been in some of these workshops where we've done this, probably hundreds of times. I have done this exercise with thousands of leaders, and what I've done is I said, okay, describe the worst boss you ever had, and people have no problem doing it. Right?
Right.
You
I know that
know,
guy.
I know. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm working for him right now. I can tell you a thing or two, right? But they're reactive, right? They're unclear in their direction. They
Mm,
are inflexible a lot of times. Like my way or the highway, and it turns out that my way is the highway, the well-worn highway. I'm not flexible to listen to other things. They're often disconnected or isolated. They isolate their team, and they run on empty all the time. They want you to run on empty. I mean, there's nothing worse than the person who's constantly praising the team member who's sending emails at 2 o'clock in the morning and then coming in at 5, because they're setting expectations, reinforcements, and rewards around total annihilation, right? And then when we say, "Tell me about the best boss you ever had,"
mhm.
they bring a calming presence into the room, right? They help me to understand how my work connects to the larger picture and to things that are of value to the organization and even to my own values, right? They are adaptive. They can find new ways. A friend of mine always says, hold tight to the vision, but let the form be flexible. And I thought,
Mm.
wow, that is just such good advice. Like I have to keep that form
Yeah, I
flexible.
love that. I'm stealing
Yeah,
that.
yeah. TM. Um, but they're connected, and like the worst boss often is hoarding talent. A
Oh,
connected boss is sharing talent through the organization, bragging about their people throughout the organization, connecting you to resources. They're not jealous, they're not waiting, right? And then they're consistent over time. You can count on them, right? But here's what I realized. I have been both of those bosses, and
yeah.
sometimes on the same day, right? And because you're showing up as your best self, and sometimes you're showing up as your worst self.
Hmm.
And I, I have a saying that I've been saying a lot, and when I say it, people often go, "Yeah." And it's not, you're not failing, you're fatigued. And as soon as I say it, people go, "Yep, that's it. That's it." So I think if you're showing up as your worst self as an individual, now you're showing up as your worst self for your team, you're showing up as your worst self for your customers, you're showing up as your worst self at home, etc. Um, so yeah, you're not failing, you're fatigued. And so that fatigue can drive negative customer experiences. And so
Mhm.
that's what we're really trying to address with my model. But what I was going to say is, you have a particular viewpoint that you're dealing with this problem. There were some people published an article in Harvard Business Review that said, you know what the problem is? The problem is fear, because fear is causing managers to pull back. It's causing them to delay decisions. And I went, you're right.
Yeah.
That is definitely something that's happening. Just because we landed on endurance and sort of dealing with the fatigue in organizations and learning how to endure doesn't mean that other people don't have really amazing models that should be honored and upheld and shown off. So, I think these two things, it's like saying, are you a fast runner or are you left-handed? Well, both can be true, right?
Yes.
You know? And
Yeah, I
so,
think that's right. There's a lot of opportunities to harmonize
yeah,
because I do think it's taking different
yeah,
viewpoints of
yeah,
consistent problems that we're
right.
seeing out there for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So I see that we have a couple of questions from the
Okay,
audience here. Let me pull these
right.
up here. So how do we position effective experience management as a dominant operating philosophy for leaders who prioritize sustainable, profitable growth?
Wow. Like mic drop
That's
right
a
there.
that's a big question.
Yeah, that is a question. Okay, so say the first part though again.
So I've got it in the chat here if you need to pull it up too. How do we position effective experience management as a dominant operating philosophy for leaders who prioritize sustainable, profitable growth.
Yeah. Yeah. Effective experience management. I'm going to let you take that first, and then I might weigh in with something if I have anything to add.
Well, I think experience management is basically, if you look at what are the gaps between the expectations that employees and customers have that aren't being delivered on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all, I mean, like that example of you getting a text about your diagnosis, that's a huge experience gap, right? And
Yeah.
that is a function of leadership, frankly, because that should never have happened that way. There should have been better systems and workflows. Back to your original point, you can
Yeah.
talk about being patient centric in that case or customer centric.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the right systems, tools, workflows, processes, technologies, collaboration tools these days are really important to enable people to actually take the right steps and deliver that superior experience, then your
Mhm.
competition is going to do it instead.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think the leader has to bring that philosophy, that framework, that operating system, if you will,
Yeah.
to be able to enable and empower the people to be the extension of whatever that
Yeah.
brand is.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some insights into healthcare in particular. Jen worked in a healthcare system for a lot of years. We've watched the changes over a lot of years. One of the things that has happened, and this is almost a cautionary tale here, is we have replaced expertise with systems. And here's what I mean by that. We have people who are in charge of patient-centric care they're not social workers, they are not physicians, they are people who do surveys. And I'm not saying in every system, right? There are some systems that just do a fantastic job of just really focusing on the patient in this particular case in healthcare.
Sure.
But here's a medical insurance kind of rock and hard place experience we're going through right now. So Jen went to her primary care physician, and the primary care physician is in network, and said to the primary care physician, it's time for my inoculation. So I need a flu shot, and I need COVID, I need whatever else it is, right? So they give her vaccinations. She gets a bill for $1,500. Now, I went to CVS, to the local, pharmacy over here, and I got my shots, and I never saw a bill. They just took care of it all.
Yeah.
She got a bill for your basic flu and COVID vaccines for $1,500. So she called up the clinic and said, look, this must be a coding error. There must be something wrong. They're like, no, no, it got rejected by your insurance company, and this is the bill. So you need to call the insurance company. So she calls the
Ugh.
insurance company and they go, oh, your doctor is out of network. She goes, no, he's not. Here, let me pull it up on your website. My physician is in network. There it is. He's been my physician for many years. It's the same physician. They're still in network. It says so on your website. Yeah, but the clinic is not. And here's the deal. Just let me vent for a second here
My
and
God.
get to the rest of these questions. Here's the deal. It was part of M Health Fairview, but then it became M Physicians. And like maybe a sign got changed somewhere, but we are somehow supposed to intuit that the name that is ever so slightly different than what we have seen, and the logo that looks identical to the logo before, that somehow we're supposed to know that the person working for our in network physician is out of network. And so rock meet hard place, right? And they're each going, no, you need to talk to them. No, you need to talk to them. No, you need to. And in the meantime, like she's a busy professional, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens in these horrible customer service experiences, which by the way, this is just the point I wanted to make. Sorry, I went a long time to make this one point. At the end of every one of those calls, they go, please stay on the line for our customer satisfaction survey. Do you have a zero? Can I hit zero? Right? You know, like that is not customer centric. And the people, by the way, the people in the billing office at the clinic and the people at the insurance company have been so well trained. Their voices are so pleasant. I'm so happy. I'm glad to help you with that. Let me just help you. Oh, that must be hard for you. They're well trained individuals in a profoundly sick system. And so, if you aren't working at that system level, all of the individual activities that you do are not going to help the customer. So, all right, I'll stop talking. That was too much, but it's
Oh my gosh. I'm sure I know for me personally, and I'm sure for anybody else who's listening, can empathize because we've all had that exact same freaking experience. And and so I don't know if it's a professional to say this on a podcast, but I'm just going to shake my head and go, dude.
dude.
I mean, I feel you. That is
Feel
just
you,
like
man.
painful. Ugh. Yeah, and we've all been there, every
Yep.
single one of us. As you know, I've just recently had to navigate my mother through the healthcare system to go into assisted living, and that's been a real joy. Let me tell you what,
Yeah.
that or pulling my fingernails out,
Yeah.
coin toss.
Yeah.
All right, we have another question from the
Yep.
audience. How might customer centricity and effective experience management help leaders to endure as opposed to more transactional and short term driven operating philosophies? I love this question because
Right.
there is so much garbage that comes out in the area of, I'm doing air quotes here, leadership development,
Hmm.
that often has no theoretical basis, no expertise. It might be somebody who, I don't know, was a copy salesperson and hit their number every year. So they decided to write a book about leadership philosophy, or I don't know. But I love, talk more about your perspective on this. Like,
Yeah.
this is really important because you've done a lot of research
Yeah.
to support and bolster where you're coming from.
Right. Yeah. So, one of the things about culture, um, you know, uh, to me, culture, the old saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So expectations, reinforcements, rewards, alignment around the customer experience. And so just that, it can't be a program. It can't be a hi. Hi, sorry, I'm still on. So, right. I'm saying hi. You want to say you want to pop in and just put your face in there. This is John.
Hi,
Hi.
Jen.
Take care. See you later.
Good to see
All
you.
right. Yeah, yeah. Jen, that's a genius walking out the door right there.
So nice.
That she
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, she is. So, yeah, so it can't be a program. It can't be, a system. It can't be one more bloody form to fill out.
Hmm.
But that's what we see a lot. We see a lot of this sort of, no wonder that Office Space is such a cult movie. Have you done that
Yes.
TPS report? We have a new memo. Have you seen the memo? Let me give you the memo. A lot of these systems, they create so much burden in order to try to be customer centric that often it interferes with the ability to deliver that customer centric experience. The thing is just expectations, reinforcements, and rewards. That's the magic dust that sort of drives the customer experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
100%. It's interesting kind of backtracking a little bit. Thinking about the environment that these leaders are operating in.
Mm,
And going back to your really your opening comments about how here's what our leaders are hearing in the halls. What is the
yeah.
truth? I don't know what it is. It's going this way. It's going that way. But you mentioned too that the trade-offs here is that leaders are being forced to make decisions about passing along many of these costs to the customers right
Yeah.
now. And that's why we're seeing the price of everything go skyrocket right now, right?
Yeah.
What I think will be very interesting is if and when, hopefully when, not if, we see a little more stabilization in some of the, economic climate issues. Tariffs is a really great example, right? It's a big fat question mark on everybody's head these days. So what happens if that goes away? Are these organizations going to lower their prices? I think
Mm,
not. I
mm.
think not. And so that will be, but it will be very interesting to see, like, are there certain leaders out there who take that big, bold move and tell their shareholders and their boards, you know what? Yes, we did raise our prices and passed on those costs to the customers. Yes, we could keep it at this level and maintain a higher level of profitability, but maybe that's not sustainable, to use your words. So.
Yeah.
All
Mm.
right, let's take a look at a little bit of a lightning round here.
Okay, here we
So,
go.
all right, ready? Here we go.
The answer is 42.
It's always the right answer, Tony. Uh, what's more dangerous, a burned out leader or a calm, composed leader who's disconnected from customers?
Ooh, good question. What a good question. Um, I think you have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. If you've created an environment, right, that supports the employees and the business leaders, et cetera, to be able to remain calm, to clarify the values, to do all those things, right? And yet it's all a navel gazing experience, right? It doesn't help the customer. That's so it all has to start with who's writing my check. Okay, that's who I'm paying
Mm.
attention to, because the customer is where the cash flows from. So I think it has to be yes and it has to be here's what I've seen, and you've seen this, James, you've seen it. The business leader, sales executive who gets promoted because she or he gets results, and yet they leave bodies in their wake.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can't be customer focused truly if you aren't well adjusted internally, right? Within the organization. The answer is yes, and I think you have to add both.
Yeah, I buy that. All right. So next question. Can a leader be highly enduring and still be customer avoidant?
Mm, good question. Yes. Same scenario, only the other way, right? So now you've got somebody who is they're not customer focused, but they're very evolved. You
Hmm.
know, that they walk into the room and everybody goes, "Whoa, thank heavens that she's here. Thank heavens that he's here," right? That, oh man, I just need this person to just sort of give me a nice verbal appreciation, and they're going to be specific, and they're really going to, wrap me in a lot of support here, and I've got the resources I need to do my job. Whoa, aren't they wonderful? But if they're not facing the customer and having those conversations with the customer and giving them equal love, it doesn't work. So it two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, I agree, and that's something I talk about as well. Is if you look at the pecking order that gets established in organizations just through that promotion process, right? Somebody's a good individual contributor, they get promoted to the manager, they get promoted to middle management, they get promoted to VP, then they
Yeah,
get SVP level, and now you've taken somebody who at one point in time had the immediate pulse of the customer, and you've removed them, three, four, five levels, and they're relying on data to tell, and data
yeah,
is great, we
yeah,
need data, but they lose the context
yeah.
because you can get lost in a spreadsheet very easily. You have to feel the pain. You
Mm,
have to actually feel the emotion that's associated with that customer interaction because your front line, they're the extension of the brand,
yeah,
and they're going to model behavior. So.
right. Yeah, yeah. Did you? I don't know if you want to go to this. There was another question that just came in. I think it's interesting.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Oh gosh. Yeah, let's talk about this.
what
What
about
about mass
mass
employee
employee
layoffs?
layoffs?
Can
Yeah.
you continue to be customer-centric organization when you value profitability over loyalty to your employee? Ooh.
That Sounds like somebody got a little hurt here. I mean, God bless you if that's you. If you're on the short end of that stick, I get it. Here's one thing. I think something interesting is happening right now. Given that AI is coming in, it's automating a lot of things. We have robotics building things. I've mentioned this to you before. There's a factory in China that cranks out 300,000 cars a year, and they have no employees. It's all robotics and AI, and even the maintenance crew that works on the robotics, they're a contract company, don't even work for that company, right? So
Oh,
y- you know, when you scale that then and you take that to all kinds of organizations and listen, if you think AI isn't coming from for your job, you probably don't know what's happening, right?
yeah.
So there will be a disruption of our society because people get their money from work. They get that they depend on that for their housing, for their insurance, for their food, like everything is built around work, around jobs. And what do you do when you have a billion-dollar or multi-billion-dollar company that the shareholders make all the profit, um, and there's no employees? There are no employees. Now you have this pipeline directly from customers directly to the shareholders, and there's nobody in between. So that is going to shake our entire ecosystem of democracy, of capitalism, right? So this is going to be a big question. The 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 how am I going to say this? So I can both empathize with the tremendous pressure that executives are under. I've been there. I've been in those board meetings. I know what it's like to have activist shareholders say, look, you aren't maximizing profitability. It is your fiduciary responsibility. If you don't, we can take you out and put somebody else in your place.
Yep.
So I'm not saying that that kind of pressure you should say, oh, well, you're right, right? I'm also empathetic to the fact that even though we often say people focus on, or executives focus on profit over people, I, I think that's a simplification. I think that's an oversimplification. I think that people are, that executives are human beings who are dealing in a very complex environment. So I think we're going to see more and more and more of this question about what about employee layoffs, mass employee layoffs, that can
Mhm.
you continue to be customer centric while also, not taking care of all of these employees? And it's a challenge of our times. Um, and I think employee loyalty is as important as customer loyalty. It's something to be focused on. If you're not paying attention to your internal customers, what are you doing? Right. So,
Yeah. But I think with the pace of change too, it's really interesting. I mean, I'll go back to the original question here. Can you continue to be customer centric when you value profitability over loyalty to your employee? I don't know the answer to that if I'm being real, because initially I would say that's not sustainable because I do see that there are ripple effects here because as certain employees are being laid off today, it's creating questions in the minds of those who remain. Like, how much time do I have left? What's my shelf life? It's also creating a real issue with recruiting power
yeah.
because, hey, I know the minute that I walk in the door of this organization, I've got an 18-month shelf life maximum before, I'm then at risk. So how much
Mhm.
loyalty am I really going to have to that organization? It's a big fat question mark. Probably not
Mhm.
a lot. But if you look at the change of things, if the organization, even in the midst of layoffs, can lean in and provide the new era of employees with the right systems, tools, processes, workflows, collaboration tools, support, can they continue to thrive and be customer driven organizations over a long time? Maybe. I mean, I can't pretend to say, even though my model would say, that's not sustainable. I mean, that with the power of AI going on right now, people, may be able to have that, super hyper personalization at scale that allows them to be super performers with a fewer number of people. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're all discovering, right? We're in undiscovered country right now. We're right now just sort of charting the territory. We don't know. But I know that it's changing a lot for everybody. And I don't think I'm saying anything new here, right? It's not like I just discovered AI, right? Oh golly. But yeah, it's hard. And especially, somebody pointed out here in private companies, you have a little more leeway, you have less shareholder pressure. But even within a private company, somebody owns pieces of that private company, and they are, some of those owners are going to want to maximize profitability at the cost of some of the traditions or loyalties within the company. So it's a constant pull for leaders, and it's one more reason why we need to endure in the middle of all
Yeah.
of this, right? So
Yeah.
sorry to hook it back to
I
John
agree
Deere,
with
but
that. And I think too, the comment about the private companies, really interesting. When I was researching for my book, I learned that in 2024, which was a year where kind of nobody did anything, right? No decisions got made. Everybody was like holding their breath. Let's wait and see what happens,
yeah.
except for private equity firms. And
Mhm.
their increase in M&A activity was up 24% from the year prior. And that trend has continued over the last year and a half or so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and if you look at how private equity companies operate, they are what I refer to as customer tolerant. They recognize the importance of customers, but only insofar as the customer is a means to an end to generate that profitability.
Mm.
And
Wow.
that's not building brand love and affinity. That's not building customer lifetime value. That's not building, an army of rabid fans. It's
Yeah.
not being Taylor Swift, that's for sure. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
so Tony, I know we're running short on time here, so we're going to go ahead and land the plane. So we had the first bookend was, a customer-driven company is what? The signature sign off here at the end is what I refer to as two things. So this could be in the form of stop, starts, and continues, but essentially, what's one behavior that you think a leader could start practicing tomorrow that customers would feel almost immediately? And what's
Mm.
maybe something that a leader should stop doing in today's environment that will help them be more effective at driving better customer centricity?
Yeah. So the first thing I'd say about being better is let the experts be the experts, right? You can't
Mm,
you can't replace experience and expertise with a system. That, I was thinking about how physicians and social workers and et cetera used to be part of the team on discharging a patient. Now there is a patient discharge coordinator whose
yeah.
job is to get that person out the door as soon as that's reasonably achievable in some systems, right? Not in all systems. So let the experts be the experts, because if you rely on the people who have the basis of knowledge to make the decisions, you're going to get better quality decisions.
Love that.
Um, the other thing I would say is keep in mind that endurance is not about grinding harder, right? And
Love that.
endurance is about, you know, being calm first, or calming yourself. I think if more people, including some politicians, were better at self-soothing, that we would have a much easier world, right? So calm, clarifying your values, It's being change agile. It's connecting within and without. It's building those connections. As an endurance athlete, and you know this, James, people picture us as the lone runner out on the path. I rarely run alone. I've usually got somebody involved here somewhere, and so that connection builds endurance. And then the thing that I said at the top, and I think this is what customers will feel the most, is that rhythm of rest and recovery.
Yeah.
You can't sprint your way through a marathon. You can't sprint your way through a business. You need
Nope.
those cycles, that rhythm of rest and recovery, and that'll get you there.
Something I need to work on personally as well. Tony, thank you so much for being my guest today. How can people best get in touch with you?
Um, so probably easiest is cultureshift.com, culture, as in Sam, shift, SHIFT, .com. And so they can find out more about me there and about our offers and about endurance leadership and all that. We have a
And you
self-assessment.
offer a free assessment as part of this to help people
Yeah,
learn about their own start on a journey towards endurance leadership, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Tony, thank you so much for being on. Thanks for the XM Global Collaborative for having us. It's been a really great session. Really appreciate you. And then we'll go ahead and sign off now. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
Take care.
James.